Hi there, thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Simon Stokes. I'm broadcasting to you today live from lockdown in Scotland, where we've got an unseasonably sunny day. We don't get many sunny days in Scotland, so it's quite painful when it falls, when we can't go outside. Hope everyone's safe and well and doing great. We're in for the next hour here, really. Live on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you very much for ADSR for inviting me to do this. We are going to cover loads of stuff today, basically. My name's Simon Stokes. I'm an Ableton certified trainer. I run this music school here called subSine Academy of Electronic Music. And here we teach people music production from beginners right through to expert. We've got courses on sound design, modular synthesis, just a basic introduction to Ableton. We've got all sorts of things that we teach here from the school in kind of evening and weekend classes in Scotland. And we also have online courses, and you can see our brand new online course on adsrsounds.com/courses. It's called Electronic Music Production with Ableton Live 10. It's like a 12-hour whirlwind round. It's not even a whirlwind, it's an extensive look at Ableton Live music production from start right the way through to making full tracks. It's got sound design, it's got drum programming, it's got everything, arrangement, build-ups, breakdowns. So yeah, you can check that out on the site. Been getting a lot of good feedback. It's just come out recently, so it's been really great to be part of the ADSR family on there. Like I said, I'm an Ableton certified trainer, so I tour about with Ableton a little bit, speaking at conferences and things like that. Here at subSine Academy, we run this building which has artist spaces. It's got the school, we've got a modular synthesizer company called Instro. Yeah, we've got all sorts of things. We're building this community here in Scotland of sort of like-minded people who are all doing music production in one form or another. We kind of focus quite a lot on electronic music production, so really house, techno, and everything around about that. But I'm a big fan of all different types of music, so we kind of don't limit ourselves to that at all. We've got all different types coming through. I'm a music producer myself. I go by the name Petrichor. I'm signed to Soma Records, which is a long-standing electronic music label, running over 25 years, really. It's been going for a long, long time. I've done a lot of touring around the world as a producer, a DJ, live act. I work with artists in the studios, quite big, successful electronic music artists. And I do a lot of things, but my main passion really is teaching people music production and how to kind of get the most out of working with Ableton Live in particular. So, yeah, I'm also becoming probably the hairiest Ableton certified trainer going. Not had a haircut in about 5-6 weeks now, starting to struggle with that. That's going to be a long time. Can't even imagine what I'm going to look like by the end of this lockdown. I'm sure we're all the same. So yeah, the one good thing is that we're getting lots of time to focus on music production. It's a really positive thing to kind of channel your energies into in a kind of difficult time globally. So I think it's great that you're all tuned in, and I've got different chat streams up here. So I've got a Facebook chat, we've got YouTube chat, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'll try and answer things as we go, and we'll definitely have a bit of time at the end to kind of catch up with whatever it is that you're wanting to go through. So yeah, in this session I kind of chose the topic breaking out of the loop. I imagine a lot of you listening right now have a lot of unfinished loops on your computer, things which maybe you just started, got bored of, ditched, never quite got to arrangement stage, or one of the problems with Ableton Live is that you can get stuck in this kind of session view. It's a big problem for everybody, even experienced producers that I've worked with for years. So I thought, why not have a look at some kind of techniques for breaking out of the loop, different strategies that you can use within Ableton Live to help with that. So we're going to look at some techniques I used on my recent album. I've had an album come out, available in all good record stores, under the name Petrichor, which is my artist name on Soma Records. The album's called Narisu. just came out at the end of last year. It's a kind of ambient techno album, so there's some dance floor stuff, there's some really ambient tracks, some housey stuff. It's very melodic kind of techno music. You can hear some of it in the background at the moment. So we're going to look at some techniques that I've used on that. We're going to look at some workflow stuff inside of Live, working synchronized and unsynchronized, some audio manipulation, how to take audio and reuse it for different things, and a bit of live arrangement, mapping to controllers. We've got loads of stuff to kind of cover. I also want to talk a little bit about working with a concept as well for your music, and that's something we're going to start with at the beginning here. So like I said, feel free to chip in as we go along and put in comments and stuff, and I will check them out. I can see we've got a lot of people logged on already. Brilliant. Okay, good. So first of all, just to kick things off, I just wanted to talk a little bit about breaking out the loop in general, because one really nice way to break out the loop, and let me just delete what I've got here, hopefully you can see this nice and clear. I'm going to bring in a track here, which is actually the title track of my album. Now, the reason I'm playing this just now is because for me it's quite an important example of how to not get stuck in the loop. Now, when you're working on an album, like a continuous body of music, you have to find strategies and ways for pushing forward all the time. You can't just get stuck on one track. You can't ditch all your loops and just leave them on a hard drive somewhere. You've got to finish things. You've got to push forward because you've got a deadline and you've got to get stuff out and you've got vinyls to be pressed and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, one really important thing about breaking out the loop that you could think about is like, why start in a loop in the first place? The tendency is always to start with some drums and sort of build stuff around that. And that's a really fun way to make music. But I find that where you're much more likely to get stuck in a loop looking for the right musical part. So I wanted to show you this track, San, which is just so simple. It's the opening track of my album. It's so simple. It revolves around a really neat little concept. And actually, I think it kind of encapsulates nicely the whole idea of trying to work fast and just get stuff down that expresses yourself as an artist. So let's just listen for a second and then I will talk a little bit about this. So this is a super ambient track, and as you can see, it's one of the most basic tracks ever. There's almost nothing to it. For me, this track was about capturing raw emotion and trying to capture a moment and a feeling, whether it's in one take or whether it's produced a lot. Really what you're trying to do in music is capture emotion, capture a moment in time. That's what I want to talk about. Okay, so that's the track San, and as you can see from the project here that I'm looking at, it is extremely basic. I mean, there's nothing to the track really, but for me it does express something, expresses a kind of a feeling, and it makes me feel a particular way. I hope it does to other people as well. And I think this is lost all too much in music production at the moment. You can learn how to be the best producer in the world over and over again, and all these tutorials and all sorts of stuff. And it is really important to learn how to get slick with your setup and with your software and with your hardware. But the whole point of that at the end of it is to be able to express yourself as an artist. And that's the bit that people forget a lot of the time, I think, when you get too deep into learning all the techniques and getting plugins and all sorts of stuff, you forget that what you're trying to do is use these tools to express yourself. And to do that, using a concept can work really, really well. So that's why I wanted to take a look at this track, because although it's extremely basic, it does get across a feeling that I had on the particular day that I made it. And when I listen back to the track, it still takes me back there. And it means something to me, even if there's nothing here. So basically, the center of this track, the concept of it, was that my little baby, my daughter, who's now 3 actually, I'd heard her heartbeat for the first time, and I managed to get a phone and use an app to make a recording of her heartbeat. And this sort of thing is what fires me up for making music, just having some kind of, it's quite an emotional experience, and you need to be able to turn that into music. That's what for me what music is all about, trying to take that experience and channel it into music. So I got this recording of her heartbeat. It was a lot faster. You can see I pitched it down. It was, if I take the tempo up, it was probably up something like this, 226 BPM where you're at. We could take it right up. Okay, let's just let's bring it back to here. So yeah, at this speed I felt like the sound was just too fast. It was going to make some sort of GABA music or something. So I pitched it right down to like 80 BPM. And actually this doesn't have a tempo. I've not warped it up properly. It's not like following the tempo of the project or anything like that. What I'm using this for is to sort of put me in a place and a kind of give me a vibe for making a track. It's just a concept, The track doesn't have to directly relate to your whatever concept you use, but something like this, like an audio recording, is the perfect thing to just jam over. So for me, that's a way that I like to work, is make field recordings or find recordings which kind of inspire me and then just jam over the top of them. And this obviously works really well for ambient music where there's not much to it. But you see, if I play this just now, the other part of the track, this kind of pad, is just a really simple recording of just jamming. It's just actually, if I take the effects off of it, it's just one part recorded on my Waldorf Microwave XTK, big keyboard, big orange keyboard. It's an amazing thing. But it's so simple, but it conveys emotion, and it makes, that's for me what being an artist is about trying to get down how you're feeling at that moment into music. And the reason why this relates to breaking out the loop is because this track was never made in a loop. It just started like this. And we're going to look at techniques as we go through, even as we go to more dance floor stuff, on how to do that in your productions. So basically, just if you're interested, the way that I would work, now I've got a Korg Minilog here, little keyboard, which is really nice. I'm just going to create an audio track for this. I'll mute out this part that I had here, and this time I'm just going to bring my Korg Minilog in. It's on an external input, so that if I put it into record, you should be able to hear. Okay, let's bring the volume up of that. So actually that wee chord sequence is quite nice. So the way that I like to work it, and if I'm trying to really break out the loop and just create something on the fly, is I like to have a concept, an idea like this, this heartbeat thing, and then just get lost in the moment just playing over the top of it. So let me just hit record. Now you should remember that the timing here isn't important. Just go by your feeling. You don't need a metronome or a kick drum or anything. So for me there, that in what is essentially one take, I managed to get a really solid recording of something which ended up being the actual track on the album without anything else added. Oh, I've put a little field recording of rain on here. I love rain recordings, so I use them on lots of different things. But you can see if I take let's just take the same effects that I had on the original pad, and I'll just copy them across onto this new one. And you should see that we've got quite a nice, I'll turn them on first. We should have quite a nice sounding thing. Maybe bring it up a wee bit. And it's captured a moment, there's no loop, there's nothing to work with here, it's just done. That's you've committed something to audio, and now you have to work with it and make it into something that you like. Little tweaks, edits and effects and things like that. And what I did in the other part was to create a sense of progression in it. Just use something like a pitch shifting delay that comes in halfway through to just, I'm using Soundtoys Crystallizer here, and it takes that one part and adds a new part and gives it progression, So I thought that was an interesting thing to look at, because it kind of touches on concepts and artistic practice and just trying to treat your music as a piece of art as well, and think of it artistically, where you're kind of you've got a concept and an idea for your track. I love working with concepts. Like for my most recent album, I had a bunch of different concepts that I used throughout it. I mean, we had the first concept that I found these here recently. My wife's uncle had actually been clearing out his father's house, his late father's house, and had come across these old discs. If you can see that there, it's like a metal disc, and he wasn't sure what they were, and he kind of passed them over to me because he wasn't sure, but they were addressed to his brother and his dad, and he'd never heard their voices on a recording before. I didn't have a recording of any of their voices, and I thought that was amazing, because this was clearly a voice recording that had been sent, and what it emerged was that these were actually used to be able to, way back in the day, the earliest audio recordings that you could do, you could go to like seaside towns and record 1 minute of your voice onto a metal disc, and it came with a wooden stylus that you could play on your gramophone, and you could post it to someone. So it was the first time you could ever record stuff, and he'd never heard these, and nobody had. So it made me start thinking about lost voices and things that have just been lost over the years, and how many voices will never be heard again. So I started collecting things like that and using them in tracks and playing around. And then obviously when my little one was born, things like the heartbeat and the photos of her and all that kind of stuff gave me the most inspiration to kind of make music. So I kind of took that and ran with it. So using concepts is a really important thing. I try and teach people in my classes here as well about how to break away from just trying to imitate other people, and try to learn how to express yourself with the tools that you have, and really work away on that. So yeah, basically, I just thought that was a little interesting way to start. The interesting thing with using audio like this and capturing it is that you can do whatever you want with it. Like if we don't have to keep that as a little pad here. We can chop it up, use it for different things, kind of make a whole track out of it if we like. So that's something I'm going to touch on today as well, is how to sort of reuse audio and stuff as well. So yeah, other concepts I've used in the past, or my previous album Wangata was all about having sequences that you find in nature, using those as the basis for music. So, Fibonacci spirals and things like that. You can find number sequences in these, use them to start programming your drums, programming your synths, and it just pushes you in a direction. The music doesn't have to directly relate to the concept. It just takes you in a direction, stops you getting stuck in a loop, because you have this kind of idea and this thing that you're working to. other things that are amazingly inspiring videos of space or, rockets taking off, comets, like things like that. If you're making dance music, particularly electro, techno, house music, that's the sort of stuff that tends to fire up the brain and really help you to sort of make music in a particular direction. So yeah, just thought it was worth covering. Hope that's useful to some of you anyway. A couple of wee things just before we get going any further, just about some workflow stuff in live that people forget all the time. In order to be able to express yourself like this and get stuff down, you have to be able to use your setup quite fluidly and kind of really, know your way around and how everything works. So a lot of that is to do with your kind of workflow and just kind of getting that right. I just wanted to touch on a couple of wee things as we go through that people always forget. First of all, on Ableton Live, they've added this collection section up in the top left in Live 10. In this section here, you can add all your favorite things. So say, for example, the way that I like to work it, I mean, there's a million ways to do this, but the way that I quite like to work it is that in my favorite section, I've got everything that I like. So whether it's a synthesizer, an effect, or a kind of sample or whatever, you can add everything to this favorite section up here. You can rename these, just right click on them and rename them, call them whatever you want. They're really just colors. And you see when I'm down in my sound section, for example, if I right click on something, you can give it a color just by clicking, or you can use the number. So if I want to add it to my favorites, I just press 1. If I want to add this banjo sample or banjo synth, which is unlikely, to my favorite synth presets, I press 5. So I just go 1, 5. Now this is in my favorites, and it's in my synth presets favorites as well. I've just added a few in here because this isn't the computer I'm using in my studio right now. So I just added a few to kind of get going. But you see in here, my banjo sample, I'll maybe make some banjo music by the end of this, are all sounds that I know that I like. And it just means that when you jump into the studio, you can find stuff you like really quickly. This seems like an easy thing and an obvious thing to some people, but for others, people who don't use this stuff, you need to, because this is how time is your enemy. Time is totally the enemy with music production. If you had unlimited time, you'd be amazing at it and you'd have loads of tracks finished. But, when you come into the studio, you've got limited time. You want to just sit down with sounds you like, drums you like, and just get going. So I totally recommend getting these sets set up. So I've got all my favorites in 1. I've got all synths that I like in 2. That can be plugins, or it can be other things. I've got effects, just effects from plugins through to Ableton's built-in effects as well, and that's on 3. So remember, if I want to add auto filter, I've got that on 3. I could add a bit of chorus. I've got erosion, maybe stick redux in there, reverb, spectrum. These are all things I use all the time. Echo. Oh, Echo's already in there. Echo's number 1 thing. That's amazing. But yeah, you see now that they all appear in here at the top. All my plugin effects appear at the bottom, the ones that I favorited that I use all the time. I'm going to use some of these today as well. So yeah, make sure you go and set these up. We've got drum stuff here, including build a drum rack of all your favorite sounds, would you? Because if I bring on my starter drums, for example, what I've got here is just a drum rack, and it's filled with my favorite sounds. Let's get Sigmund out of the way. I love that plugin. But this is filled with all my favorite kind of plugins. I've got a kick drum. All sorts of nice stuff just ready to go. So if you sit down, you've got drums you like, you've got percussion you like, and you can just start making music. So let me get rid of everything apart from this in my project just now, actually. I've got Push here as well. I'm not going to talk about Push too much. Push, was covered in really good detail by Mr. Ed Rollo a few days ago. So if you've not seen that, check out his ADSR live stream that he did a few days ago. It's amazing. He's based in Hong Kong and he's really, really good at Push 2. He's got an amazing course on ADSR at the moment as well. So make sure to check that out. But yeah, basically, Push is the center of your world when you're making music using Ableton Live. So, I mean, it's great for playing in drums. Let's just drop in. Oh, we're down at 80 BPM. I'll just bring this up a bit. 1, 2, 4 sounds about right. I'll come across the session view just now so that we can see what I'm doing. Let's just have this, and I've got some vinyl crackle in here I love. Okay, that's sounding good. And that sounded nice. Just make sure there's nothing. Oh, yeah, it's got a wee bit on it as well. Okay, good. So I've got some drums here on the go. Push just makes it so simple to just play stuff in. You know, you can either tap stuff in as the project's playing, or you can put it into note repeat mode. Find a nice sound. And you can see how it's so dynamic with the velocity. So when I press something and hold it in note repeat mode, I can choose it in 16ths, 8ths, 30 seconds. And you can do, by pushing harder and softer, you can get really nice dynamics on that. Okay, I'll leave it like that. I'm going to add on push. Let's just add another drum rack. Maybe I'll stick on just a basic 808 would be nice. Nice offbeat hat. In fact, let's make this a 909, get something a wee bit harsher sounding. So you see on push again, once you work your way around it, it's just so simple to build stuff up really quickly. And yeah, that's something that I just absolutely love about it. I use it for absolutely everything. I could add another, let's add another track. I can load some stuff from my collections, which is this bit at the top that we were talking about. Let's just grab another starter drums here. Stick that in. And I could just tap in something. Maybe I can make it twice as long. But just do it once, I like that. Quite like that wee sound, it's a bit random, but I like it. Just bring its velocity down a wee bit. So you can build stuff up really quickly and push. Again, we're working in this kind of loop here though, and we need to kind of get out of that as quick as possible. So we're going to start mapping stuff up eventually to kind of get out of that. Let's look at just using push for a synthesizer part as well. If I add a new track, let's go to my collections again. I'm just choosing my synth presets, which is the same as going to this folder here and going through them. There's my banjo. I am not ready to use the banjo right now, I don't think. A soft chord, that's quite nice, that top one. So I'm going to load that, it brings it onto a new track. This is a nice thing about push, you know, when you choose a scale, like I've chosen D minor at the moment. It's so fast in the workflow because everything you touch is in key and it just works with your project. I absolutely love that. And it means you can start playing around with scales that you don't understand or don't normally use. And this helps me push forward really quickly as well because there's not all the bum notes and stuff. Everything you play seems to feel good. Here's a minor blues. 3 fingers, you can play absolutely anything. So I really like this. Let's just go to minor. Now, when I'm making a track and I'm trying to push things forward quite quickly, I like to try and find ideas that I can use to kind of move things forward. So there's lots of different methods for doing this. You can basically record the MIDI parts. So one way to do that is just literally to jam around for a while. And the more I've gone on with music production, the more I've tried to break away from actually having the beats playing while you're doing this. I tend to find that you stumble across things a bit more when you just get connected to the synth and start working it and playing it. So yeah, if you sort of did something that you liked there, in Ableton Live you've got this, again, quite a new feature called Capture, where if you press this button at the top here, very low BPM there, you can see what's happened is all the stuff that I've done recently, it's actually gone and captured it and kept it. So you can never really mess things up or forget things. You just, sometimes it's better to play without being in record, because as soon as you press record you start like tensing up and get it all wrong. But in this way, now I've got here some kind of ideas. I just quickly quantized it on push. You could do that by right clicking and quantizing here as well, you know, to make everything snap to the grid so it all feels nice and tight. So that's one way to record stuff and get ideas. Another way would be just to simply solo this out, hit record and just try and play. I like to tweak things while I'm doing it, you know, because it's, if you're not tweaking, I mean, you got to get those elbows out while you're playing stuff. I like to just kind of play and just whatever comes out, just see. This is where push comes in really handy, because it kind of keeps things in key. And the fact that you've not got a metronome or a kick on the go means that quite often you stumble across more interesting timings than you would normally play. One of the problems with electronic music is you get into habits, or any kind of music, you get into habits of doing the same thing over and over again in terms of what rhythms you use, what notes you play if you play the keyboard. And that's why push is really cool, because first of all, it takes you away from your traditional keyboard that you might go and play the same chords every single time or whatever, but also just lets you record like this and just jam and then just try and find something afterwards. So this is one way of working, where we can just skip through and have a look. Like, let's say I'll just quantize this, see if we've got anything in here. I don't even know what the rhythm of this is right now. Let's try to put the kick in. Okay, that worked quite well. Let's try this bit. Don't like that as much. Undo that. So that's another way of working, and where you can kind of keep things as MIDI and then use that to really tweak it as time goes on. Now, again, the problem with that is that you're prone to getting stuck in the loop again, because you've got this device, in this case Wavetable, which you can endlessly tweak to oblivion and never actually get stuff done. You know, so we've got, let's have a look here. So yeah, what we've got here is this nice thing. Now if we work in audio exclusively and we capture everything that we're doing as we play in notes and things, then you commit to that audio and you commit to something, and you have to make music with it and you have to push forward. And believe me, out of everything else, this is the one thing that forces you to move forward and actually make music all the time. So I'm just going to choose, what I've done is created a new audio track, and I'm going to take a recording of this soft chord here. I'm going to stop all the clips. We don't need any of them playing just now. So this is one of the beautiful things about Ableton Live, is the way you can route audio around, and the way you can just take audio from anywhere and record it, or route MIDI notes all over the place. You can do lots of really interesting things with it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is take the audio from, that's this option here, take the audio from a soft chord and stick it into record. And that means that when I record here, it's going to take the output of this track and record it in. So let's just set this to monitor in. So I'm going to hit record here. Now do you see when, as I play notes, they're coming into this clip? And let's just take the beats out a sec. Now this way, again, I'm staying away from keeping everything super rhythmic, because it stops me doing the same thing over and over. Let's tweak a bit here. Some basic stuff as well. And you see, I'm kind of messing up, but I'm just having fun with the synthesizer. And that's what's, again, another thing that's often forgotten is electronic music's all about tweaking things and playing with things. And particularly techno is about just fiddling with everything and just seeing what kind of comes out. And you can lose that if you get too bogged down in the software and all the possibilities. A great way to make music quickly is just to sort of record stuff and just constantly take the audio and take little bits and make it move on. Now let's just see if we got anything in here. So I'll take a little loop. Let's just take a 1 bar loop to begin with. It's a bit clicky, that one. It's not bad. Let's put a bit of beat in just to hear it. Okay, so the timing's just a bit too out, but we can fix that easily. We can just quantize it. This is another amazing thing in Ableton Live. You can quantize audio. So it's just like MIDI notes. It's going to move it around. Sounds nasty right now, but maybe with some of these warping settings down here, we could fix it up a little bit. I'm in beats mode for warping, which means that Ableton's time stretching this, assuming that it's sort of percussive information that's in the loop. But this is more melodic, so I could try complex mode. Sounds not too bad. I'm going to go back to beats mode because there's a really interesting and unknown bit down here where you can actually tell it to shorten each note of the audio. So let's change it to this mode. And you can tell it to do it by transients, by 16ths. So that's quite cool. There's loads of little things. You can see that I can, even after it's audio, in real time, you can tweak and play around with it as well. So that sounds not too bad. Let's try something like this. And let's try quantizing. Another one. Okay, I like the first one. Maybe doing the 16s. So there we go. I've got a little loop that I quite like. Let's try a couple of different things. Just using the shortcut Control U or Command U to quantize things really quickly. I like that. That's quite nice, you see, and again, it's like rhythms that I wasn't expecting, and it's kind of, you're discovering things. You're just playing around and discovering stuff as you go, and I really like that. Let's just call this main loop. I don't want to dwell on it too long, this one, because Yeah, one of the great things about working in this way is that you can really quickly start to build up other ideas for the track based on the original loop that you found. So I've got this one. Let's go to my favorite effects and stick a bit of echo on it because I just love that. Okay, that's sounding good. Maybe I'll create a new audio track then. And onto this one, I'm going to take the same piece of audio. So this is about how we can take one element, flesh out more elements, and break out of the loop by doing that in order to give you more parts to your track. So let's just call this bassline. And I'm going to take the exact same loop. Maybe try pitching it down, so just using the transpose. Let's go down 12. Got a nasty wee click there, but I'm going to filter that off, so that's fine. Let's put an auto filter on it. And do you see now that gives you that kind of sub? This one's got a nasty little click as well. We need to sort that. That's better. And you see, so there. Let's bring in this bassline a bit more. Now you're getting kind of more parts out of that first one that you recorded, and it's kind of letting you flesh the elements out here. So okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's try getting some more elements then. So let's just make this red so it's nice and obvious. Got kick. Let's just rename these while I'm at it. Kick, hats, perk of some kind. And that was our kind of experimental part there. We don't really need that just now. I might just move that out of the way, actually. And let's try creating more parts from that one part then. So I'm going to create another audio track. And let's just call this sequence. And I'll take the same audio. Let's take this across. So we'll solo out. And let's try something else. This time, let's try pitching it up. So I'll try putting it up 12 semitones. And I could actually try shortening it down a bit. Now, if you shorten things to exact beats, like 1 beat long, it's going to sound quite boring. But and same with 2 beats, or if you make it maybe 1.5 beats, you get this kind of. Maybe we could make it 1 beat and 1 step. And you get these lovely, what are called polyrhythms. As things kind of move around. And it's the same part. So harmonically, the main loop, the bass line, and this sequence will all work together because they're all derived from the same part. Now I know this is obviously an extreme example of this, taking one thing and making lots of stuff from it, but it just shows you that instead of getting stuck hunting around for things all the time, you can just kind of you can just use what you've got and create more elements. So let's just put a bit of echo on this. Okay, let's try another bit here. And you see how it works perfectly with that bass line. Let's bring in the main loop. So I'm starting to get a feeling for like how this track is going to play out, and it's all about just bringing things in and out, obviously, and kind of fading them up and down. And I'm going to use the controller for that in a minute, and maybe we can record a live arrangement of this as we go. Okay, that's sounding quite nice. Let's create a new track again. So Control T or Command T to create a track. I'm going to take the same part again, my main loop, bring that across to here. Let's just color these all differently so we can see them clearly. So main loop Again, let's try and make a pad sound. So a pad is like a smooth sound that kind of plays over the top. So at the moment I've got this. But maybe if I just take like one note from it, let's try that. That's quite a nice note. Now it sounds rubbish like this, obviously, but maybe we stick a little bit of reverb on it or something. Let's get a nice reverb. So in my effects here, I've got some nice, so Valhalla Shimmer, a great reverb plugin if you haven't played with that before. Let's put it 100% wet. So it's all reverb and none of the original sound. And we've gone from to the smoothed out kind of pad sound. And we could even use a bit of feedback on this, which gives it an octave up, just sparkling away at the top there. Or we could try filtering this a little bit to give it a bit of movement. Filter with a bit of LFO on it is always good for making stuff move. Let's pan it a bit as well, so you've got stereo there. That's nice, and it should work perfectly with everything else. Bearing in mind I didn't even listen to them as I was doing that. I might bring it down a bit. Okay. And you see, because all the melodic parts work together, and I started with a drum rack of sounds that I liked at the beginning, there's no fanning around trying to get stuff working. It just works. Everything seems to click together quite nicely. So this is how I like to make music quite quickly. Have your favorite stuff ready to go. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you make a track. Just start with your favorite things and tweak them into something new. It also helps you develop a sound as an artist as well, because that's one of the difficult things for people, is just actually honing their own sound as they go along. So for this, I'm going to take this and just map up a couple of things. So I've got Push for playing stuff in. It's really, really nice bit of kit. I've also got this Novation Launch Control XL, and I'm gonna stop for some questions at the end. By the way, I'm just going to sort of carry on just now, and then you can fire me some questions in about 5-10 minutes, and we'll go through some of them. I don't mind sticking about for a bit longer if you've got time. So this is the Novation Launch Control XL. It's a really nice controller just because it's got 24 knobs, 8 faders, loads of buttons, and it doesn't really do anything until you tell it to control stuff inside of Live. So for example, I've got it mapped up to my master volume just now, just so that when I'm talking I can bring this down a little bit. Inside Live, it's really simple to map stuff up, and if you've got into the habit of making music without using a controller, just get one and get hands-on with it. It just makes music making so much more fun to be hands-on, twisting things, pressing buttons. It's like back in the day when everything used to run into an analog mixer and you recorded an arrangement for your track by muting and unmuting things and bringing stuff in and out. It just felt more connected, and you can still have that now just by using a controller with a bunch of controls on it. So for each track in your project, let's say for example, if I go to the MIDI button in the top right up here, and on my kick drum I could say, okay, I want this button to mute and unmute my kick, this button will mute and unmute my hats, this one will do my percussion, although there's not much on there. I might add another percussive track, but now you see already just got a quick way of just bringing stuff in out. So that was just literally the mute buttons on and off, very simple. And if I've got loads of knobs and things on this as well, so why not map some stuff up? Like if I go back into MIDI mode on my kick drum track, I've already got some stuff macroed up in a drum rack here, but you could put an auto filter on the end or whatever you want. But I've got a high pass thing mapped up here, so I'm just going to click that, twist the knob, and it's straight away that is mapped to the kick. So this just gives you a way of actually recording your arrangement on the fly, because let's just map up a few other things. So say, for example, my main loop, I'm going to map that up to, I'm going to keep my drums on 1 to 4 here of my controller. Keep these drums and have 5 to 8. Let's just use these as loops. So there I've got my main loop, I've got my bass line, I've got my sequence, and I've got my pad just now. So I've got those things mapped up. I could also map up some of my sends. I've got little... Ooh, got quite a weird send on that one. What's this one? Nothing on this one. I'll put something nice on this send as well. Let's just put my... I've got some audio effect racks I've made up of just a nice echo. So nice just to have little things like that happening in your track. So I just go to MIDI mode here, map up send A on my hats, which is channel 2 to here, send B to here. And maybe I could also map up the feedback of this echo to a knob as well. So now that lets me do this. So simple, but you can't do that with a mouse, just doing all those different things at once. You're starting to bring together an arrangement here, a structure to your track. And because I've mapped up volume faders and things as well, I can go just to my bass, bring down the pads. Oh, I've mapped the pads and my master volume to the same thing. That was a bit stupid. See how now we've just taken a few controls and we've given ourselves the possibility to make an arrangement for our track. So let's just map up a couple of other things. Like I can go to MIDI mode and I'll map up my main loop. Let's give some effects to that. Not my bass line, my sequence can go into the delay. The pad's fine. And that should give us enough thing. Maybe put this into there as well. So that should give us enough things to record like a little arrangement, just as an idea for you, like how you could kind of flesh this out. It's just a little bit of a vibe. So let's say, for example, we're going to start the track like this. Okay, so I love getting controllers hooked up because it just breaks you away from the whole idea that you're playing a computer and actually feel more like you're playing an instrument or you're connected to the music. And it's a great way to break out the loop as well, as I keep saying. So in this instance, and one of the incredible things about Ableton Live that was just not possible before this software, that, you know, I used Reason and Pro Tools and Logic and all sorts. Once Ableton came along, it just all made sense because now you can just jam your track into a structure and it's done, you know, or it's half done anyway. So in this instance, all we do, because we're working in session view in a loop here, all I do is hit record on my project here. And now everything I'm doing is actually recording into a structure on the other side, including volume changes, mutes, effects, all this kind of stuff. Everything is recording. So I'll just make a quick arrangement. So starting to bring in the main loop. Give it a bit of echo. Now we're starting to build a structure what you're finished with is just a track. So when we bring it across to the arrangement here, we've actually got the idea for a structure of a track here ready to go. We've hardly done anything. We've only made one pattern. We've recorded a couple of drums, like not very much, and we've just jammed it out as an arrangement. And it gives you a really solid starting point. It stops you getting stuck in that loop because we're already out of it. We're in this kind of arrangement mode now where we can start to do all the fine detail on it. So I thought that might be quite handy for you to just try. Most tutorials I've seen are specific music production tutorials rather than a sort of mindset or a way of thinking about music. So I really hope that you picked up some stuff from that. I'm going to come across and check out some comments, so feel free to sort of stick some in here. I need to have a wee dig through first of all. My name's Simon Stokes, by the way, if you missed it at the beginning. Thank you very much to ADSR for having me on here. I've got a new course on ADSR's website. It's a 12-hour Ableton Live course. Covers everything you need to know about making music inside Ableton Live. Very clear, broken down into lots of videos. It's helped a lot of people. I've been getting a lot of good feedback. So check it out. It's on adsrsounds.com/courses. They also have sounds and plugins and other things available on the site as well. So let's have a quick look through here. Some comments. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, so really awesome. Thank you very much, Brian Funk. It's a bus mixer 2. The piano roll, yeah, I know what you mean, Epic B. I mean, it's not designed to be a piano roll piece of software, I guess, Ableton Live. So, yeah, it's not always the best for that. Jonathan Gordon, hello, how you doing? What are some of your other favorite synths for creating the lead on tracks, plugins, etc.? Good one. I try not to use plugins. I've got a lot of hardware in the studio. I have tons and tons of synthesizers. My absolute favorite at the moment are these Waldorf ones, Microwave XT and XTK, and I've got a Waldorf Blofeld as well I use for a lot, and this Korg Minilog and a Monologue as well, actually. But so I prefer hardware for different reasons. I mean, one main reason is that it's it's just that tweakability, like we've been saying in this kind of session. When you when you tweak something and record it, it's done. Like basically, you've tweaked it, you've connected with the synth, recorded a sound which has got you in it because you're tweaking controls and knobs. And once it's recorded as audio, that's it basically. There's not much more you can do. So just wanted to that's how I use it. In terms of software, I do have a bunch of different plugins. I use Massive a lot. I mean, my main is Winston the Greyhound. Hope you heard that. I do have a bunch of different plugins. Massive's a big one for me. I've got all the Native Instruments stuff, but I don't use them that much, to be honest. If I do use a soft synth, it's an Operator, Wavetable, or Massive. I'm a bit of an Ableton diehard, so I tend to use all the stuff in here. I actually think combinations of Ableton's effects and their synths it's way more powerful than a lot of people give it credit for. So that's what I would say. Whiskey and Synths, hello, how you doing? Gain staging. There's a bit of stuff about gain staging and mixdowns in the course, Maxim AG. You can have a wee look at that if you're interested in mixing and mastering. I mean, it's not a specific mixing and mastering course, but it has a whole section on it. So there's about 3 hours of mixing stuff in there. So it's called Electronic Music Production with Ableton Live 10. It's on ADSR just now. And it's me that teaches the whole course. Any more recommendations for someone who's worked exclusively in arrangement view on how to get started using session view? Okay, Michael B, and thanks very much for the question. That is funny because that's like the opposite of this of this talk. But yeah, basically, if you've only ever worked in arrangement view and you come from that world, just go with it. I mean, if you make music that way, unless you really desperately want to use session view, I'd say just use whatever way helps you to make music the quickest. That's all the tool is there for. But I mean, you could try playing around with doing stuff as a live arrangement, like what I was showing in this class. And my course that's on ADSR is structured in such a way that the first half of the course is all taught in session view, like how to use it effectively to build up this whole live setup that you're kind of working with. And then from there, it goes into how to then record that into an arrangement or to just do it manually and make an arrangement bit by bit. But either way, you'll find what you want in there with session view stuff anyway. But like I said, the most important thing is that you're making music. So if you are doing it and you're in arrangement view, why change it? That's the way I would look at it. Let's have a look. Familiar face. Hi Petros. Hope you're doing good in Greece. Let's see who else we've got here. Do you have a good way of accomplishing the museum? Which controller would you recommend specifically for Ableton? There are so many out there, and it depends on your budget and whatnot. But for me, the Novation Launch Control XL is the perfect controller for knobs and faders and things. It's got this kind of grippy bit on the bottom, which seems like pointless, but actually, when it's sitting on your desk, that's leaning on some cables, but when it's sitting on your desk or when you're performing live on stage, it never ever moves. It's like rock solid. You can really hammer it and it doesn't move, which gives you excellent control over things. It's about £100, so $120 or something like that. It's pretty reasonably priced. I'd say that's the one for me. And also I've taken this all around the world, used it on stage, packed it away, drunk, and in all sorts of venues, and it's never broken. So yeah, it's built like a tank essentially. But the best overall controller for Ableton Live is Ableton Push, which is built entirely for Ableton. So I mean, if you're going to get one controller to be your keyboard, your drum machine, for arranging, for clips, for everything, Push is the one, or Push 2 specifically. Now, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look much further than that, honestly. So that's a good one. Do you have a way of accomplishing this with Machine. I'm not too sure, Marcos. It's been quite a long time since I've used Machine, so I couldn't really advise on that. But ask on ADSR. I'm sure that they'll be able to give you some help somewhere in the ADSR group on Facebook. How do you deal with noise floor when recording hardware synths, from JH? I'm a bit of a funny one like that, because actually I kind of like a bit of noise. I'm not looking for a very clean signal a lot of the time for my own productions. I consider the noise to be part of the character of a synthesizer, so I'm not too fussed about that. But really, I mean, when it comes to getting super clean recordings, it's all about getting the level coming from your synth to be as hot as possible in your track inside Live without ever clipping. So it's difficult to get that just bang on. Sometimes using a hardware compressor between your synthesizer and the sound card is a good way of stopping it ever clipping, by just kind of putting a bit of a ceiling on it, and meaning that when the synth gets too loud, the compressor just holds it in place. But really, a good quality audio interface with a very low noise floor on it, and just recording as hot as possible is about as much as you can do, I would say. Chris White, like I said earlier, course is fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. Partner bought it without any prior knowledge of Ableton, and she's loved it. Taught me a few new things. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris White. That's much appreciated. Hope you enjoy it. Let's see who else is on here. Explain a bit more on the granular use. I want to use a granular delay, but it doesn't sound the best. I didn't realize you couldn't see my VSTs. I didn't use that many, but for granular stuff, I would highly recommend playing around with Granulator. It's a Max for Live plugin. It's totally free. This is for granular synthesis stuff. I know you're talking about a granular delay, but for granular synthesis, basically what this does is lets you take a sample. So let me grab, I'll just grab a vocal a cappella for just now. Let's just grab anything. Whoa. Okay.
I'm the DE.
Oh my god.
Hey,
no.
yo, man. Damn, what's
Your cell phone.
Okay, let's just...
Everything music takes me high.
Okay, let's just take this in, okay? I drag it into Granulator, and then by holding a key on my push, I can scroll. That doesn't sound great, does it? Let's... Oh, no. And it lets you take a grain, and it could be very small, or it can be larger. And when you do that, let's try a shorter sample for this. When you do that, you can get some pretty interesting results. Let's just try some kind of loop. Loops? These... Let's see what we could use for this. Some kind of samples. Not drum samples, really. They're not as ideal. Synth drums. Pete's beautiful voice is one of my friends singing. Badly. Very Daft Punky. You see, when you get it just right, and you put a little bit of envelope on it, you can take any sample and make it into like a pad. And it's really tweakable. That's why I love granular synthesis for stuff like that. So that's always worth a wee play around with. Let's just quickly check on Facebook. Anything on here? Does your ADSR course differ from your subSine course? No, they're the same course. The same course on the subSine website as on the ADSR one. Let's have a look here. That was Ace. Thank you very much, David Henkel. Do you ever use other tracks to get an idea of different arrangements? I try not to. I do teach that. I teach people to use reference tracks to get an idea for their own arrangement, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time with things like arrangement. It's been done over and over again with dance music. There are formulas which work. But that being said, sometimes you want to it's important to also put your own spin on whatever music you're making. You're not going to get popular or get well known by just imitating what other people do. So it's really important to have your own style and your own technique. So I would say early on, and depending on what stage you're at, early on, I would recommend using reference tracks to get an idea of how to put together your own. But actually, as you develop your sound, if you've got a well-crafted sound, I would try to experiment just putting your own style on things, and particularly with live performance, because there's the listener can sort of feel you on the other end of those controls tweaking things. It's translated into the music really well, more than just imitating what someone else is doing would be. So I hope that helps. That was Ace, thank you very much. Best way to record Unity gain. Whiskey and Synth has given some information on the sort of gain staging type thing. So if anyone's interested, he knows quite a lot of stuff about that. Granular synth. Okay, great video. Is there a way to lock master volume or individual track volume so I never clip? Brilliant question, actually. Jim Cathcart, thank you very much for that. That's belter, because I should have gone into that, but I was conscious I was running out of time a little bit. So each of these tracks, which are all automated now, but say, for example, my bassline track. Now, if I know that this sounds correct, let me just drag this fader up a bit so I can see what level the fader is at. So you see, if I know that my bassline is the perfect level when it's at minus 0.9 dB, then it's quite hard with a fader like this to stop it in the right place and stop it from clipping. So a bit of preparation is really, really good to make sure that all of your faders go to the exact place that they should be when you whip them right to the top. Because the last thing you want, particularly if you're playing live in a club, because you play live sets the same way as what we're doing just now, essentially. But particularly when you're in a club and the lights are off and it's all dark and everything's a lot more difficult than you remember it in the studio, you kind of... you want it so that when you whip this fader right to the top, it goes to the perfect spot. So let's do it for this one here, my bassline one. So I go back into MIDI mode, I click on the bassline track, and you see how it highlights up here in the browser section. This is the controller number of this fader. This is the what it's controlling, the bassline mixer track volume. And this is when the fader's right down, what position is my hardware fader, that is, what position is this fader inside of live? And when it's right up, what position is it at? So all I have to do is set the maximum to be minus 0.9. And now when I come out, you'll notice when I flip this fader right up, poof, it stops right at minus 0.9. So you can set everything up in that same way. And similarly, if I come back to this minus 0.9 and minus infinity, if I put these the other way around, minus 0.9, and put this right at the bottom. So now it means when my hardware fader, this one on my launch control, is right down, this fader is right up. So it's like put it backwards, so they work the opposite way around. So now when I bring this one down, the fader goes up and vice versa. So yeah, quite interesting that, because sometimes when you turn one knob, you want to do two effects at once. Like I'll show you a little example of that. Let's just go to a section of my track where things are playing. Right, I'm just going to take a little loop of this for 1 second. Hope ADSR don't mind, I'm running over a bit here. So I'm going to put I've got an auto filter and a redux, for example, and let's say I want to MIDI map the filter frequency and the redux downsample to one knob. So I just tweak the same knob there. Now when I press play, so when the knob is right up, the filter is off, but the redux is right on, and vice versa. No use whatsoever. So I come back into MIDI mode, go to this control and just swap one of them so it's the other way around. And now, when I do this control, that's it. The knob's right up right now. They're both on. You see how the knobs are going in different directions inside Live? Which works really nicely. So that was an excellent question. Thanks for that, Jim. Much appreciated. Serum and Massive Bisdenbury, thank you for the question. I mean, both are great synthesizers. Serum more focuses on kind of wavetable and stuff, but I mean, they're both very good all-rounders. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those synthesizers. They're both brilliant. Serum's got a very clean sound, but it is a really, really nice synth as well. Came here for echo sounds. Thanks, Trackformer. For house music, deep house, is Ableton very, very good? I think it's undoubtedly the one. That's for you, Nevione. I'd say Ableton is the one in terms of house music and deep house stuff. It's just perfect for that. It's what it's designed for. Okay, great. Nevione is a good way I start in the session and switch with all elements to the arrangement. Well, that's kind of what we just did in the video. So I mean, watch this back to get some ideas for that. But I mean, the quickest way, let me just delete my arrangement here. The quickest way to do that is just to have all your clips playing that you want to take across. Let's just bring stuff in. Bring my master down a bit while I talk. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so if you want to take all of these elements across to the arrangement view, you're just going to hit arrangement record and just record them for 8 bars, just like, or however long they are. If they're 16 or 32 bars, that's fine as well. Not doing any automation this time, we're just recording a nice 8-bar loop. 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, stop. Okay, and now I come across here and go back to arrangement, and you can see I've got a really nice neat, I've went over a little bit there, let's just delete that. I've got a really nice neat 8-bar section here. If I close them all down, and that's all my parts for my track. So all of that stuff is in my online course that's on ADSR courses at the moment. It's called Electronic Music Production with Ableton Live 10. So that's well worth checking out. Okay, so I think we've gone through most people. Just quickly check Facebook. Mark Bailey done the subSine course. Top notch, really helped me as a beginner move forward. Thank you very, very much. That's much appreciated. Great. Okay, I think we've kind of covered most. Chris Curry, any suggestions on creating transitions in tracks out with reversed elements and crashes, etc.? That's a big question, that one. I mean, in terms of transitions, there's so many different things you can do. I'm a big fan. I mean, if you don't like reversing things, then that makes it a little trickier. Obviously, having nice effects, sample packs, which have nice swooshes and swishes and stuff, work really, really well. I love resampling things out. So taking a new audio track, recording the output of the master into it, and doing stuff to that. So say, for example, let's take this. Well, in fact, let me take the master. Post effects. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just, what this is going to do is record the output of the master channel back into a new audio track. So you can see what I've got now is my whole track at that point. In fact, what you can do is just delete all of this. It should sound exactly the same. If we listen just now, this is where it doesn't. I knew that was going to happen. It always does that. It just tries to trip you up. But yeah, basically, that should sound exactly the same. It's because I'm playing around, because of the way that I'm recording this with the microphone. It's come through a bit louder. But basically, once you've got that, then you're free to reverse this, chop it, make little changes and edits to parts. And it should sound absolutely perfect. I mean, doing that again, that stuff is in my kind of online video course if you're interested in it. It's probably more than we've got time to go into just now, But so many different questions. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. I think we've pretty much covered most things there. Yeah, so my name is Simon Stokes. I'm an Ableton certified trainer. I run my music school, subSine Academy of Electronic Music, based in Scotland. Check it out. Check out the course on ADSR at the moment. And yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for tuning in. I know it's quite mad times just now. I hope everyone's safe and getting lots of time to make music. That's the positive in all of this, really. So yeah, thanks once again for tuning in. Really hope to do this again someday. Okay, cheers.